I am so excited for our 13th anniversary. How many of you have been here for 13 years? Oh my, awesome. Terrific. That's good. Yeah, that's a lot of drinking. Who said that? Who said that? Okay, tonight we're very excited to have Scott Hennings here with his crew. Well, his group. He'll introduce them in a minute. We've talked about having roundabouts for a long time, so I'm glad it's finally come to be. He's Assistant Director of Transportation with McHenry County Department of Transportation. He's been with them for 10 years. And he oversees the development of the county's long-range transportation plan, 5-year program. He's a resident of Crystal Lake, actually lives down the street from me. He enjoys eating at Duke's and spending time at Crystal Lake Brewing in his free time. So Scott, take it away.
And thank you. Joining me today, I've got Chris Teat from the city of Crystal Lake, or sorry, the city of Woodstock. Don't kill me for saying that. Chris earned his bachelor's degree in science degree from University of Wisconsin-Madison in civil engineering, or civil and environmental engineering. And he's a licensed PE in both Wisconsin and in Illinois. He's been primarily working in the municipal engineering field. From 2002 to 2015, he worked at the city of St. Charles. And then later on, he went to work for the city of Elgin Public Works as their senior engineer managing the daily operations of many of their divisions within the Public Works Department. In 2017, he left the public sector to go into the private sector for a time, but then eventually back in January of 2020, he came to the city of Woodstock as their city engineer and has been serving in that capacity ever since. So thank you, Chris, for joining us. He'll be kind of closing today's presentation. And then behind me, I've got our assistant county engineer, Daryl Kuntz. Daryl, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. I've been working for McHenry County Division of Transportation for about 1.5 years. I was previously at Lake County Division of Transportation, and before that, I was an engineering consultant up in Wisconsin. Graduated college, University of Wisconsin Platteville. I do have a PE in 2 states, just like Chris, and really enjoy all the different aspects of transportation, what it can do to help both pedestrians, environment, as well as moving people and goods.
So in case you were following along, I got 2 engineers with me. I'm not an engineer. I'm a planner by trade. I think differently than the engineers. So hopefully I'll kind of round out this crew we have here in front of us today. All right, let me get this here. So I didn't pick the title of this presentation, but we've got Roundabouts, Use, Impacts, and Benefits. Thank you, Pat, for choosing the title. Go right into it here. So there's 2 things right away that I'm going to point out right at the top. So the first is I'm going to presume that all of you have no idea what roundabouts are, because I want to make sure no matter what your skill of navigating roundabouts, that everybody comes with us along the way here. So it might be basic for some of you what I'm going to go through, but just hang with me. The second point is that every intersection is unique, right? So roundabouts are not a panacea. They're a tool in our toolbox, and both with the city of Woodstock as well as the county, we look at roundabouts as a potential alternative at intersection projects, but it's not an automatic thing that we look to do roundabouts everywhere. Sometimes a traffic signal works better. Sometimes a 4-way stop is better than a roundabout. It just kind of depends on the context of the community and where we're looking to do a project. So I want to get that out right away at the top, just so that you don't think I'm here working for the roundabout industry. That's not what I'm here today to do. So what you see here is basically what is considered a modern roundabout today. So first off, what are they? So what they are not are rotaries or traffic circles. So you probably have heard these things. Different parts of the country use what are called rotaries. Typically, a modern roundabout is smaller than the high-speed rotaries that you find elsewhere. And then they're larger than the typical neighborhood traffic circles you might see in the city of Chicago or Milwaukee or anywhere else. They share a lot of these characteristics, though. So you see there's usually a center island that is sometimes landscaped. There's a truck apron surrounding the center island so that trucks can navigate around the roundabout. There's splitter islands, a circulatory roadway as well as all the other things, sidewalks and everything else. So this is kind of the common denominator of all the roundabouts that we're building today. So how do you navigate a roundabout? This might be basic for some of you, but for some of you, it might not be. I know a lot of people call us up and they're nervous about roundabouts. They don't like going through them. I've heard some people say they'll drive out of their way to avoid roundabouts. So it kind of depends on where you grew up, where you drive, if you drive very often, that all feeds into this. So if you remember these 3 rules, you'll be fine. So the first is slow down. As you come up to a roundabout, make sure you slow down. That's the #1 thing. The next thing is look around, right? Make sure you're aware of your environment, both pedestrians, other vehicles that are approaching the roundabout. And the third thing is just be ready to yield, right? If there's traffic in the roundabout, be ready to yield. So breaking these 3 things down a little bit more, the first thing is make sure when you come up to a roundabout, you're yielding for pedestrians that are in the crosswalk. That's a state law. It's not something that we all need to be told, but it's something that I always make sure I reiterate, that pedestrians always have the right of way when they're entering in the crosswalk in front of you. As you come up to a roundabout, look to your left and make sure you yield to traffic that's in the roundabout. Traffic in the roundabout has the right of way. Once you see a gap, you can enter the circle and proceed until you need to exit. Again, look for pedestrians as you exit because people might be walking across the crosswalk where you exit. And make sure you stay in your lane when you're in the roundabout. If it's a multi-lane roundabout, if it is a multi-lane roundabout, make sure you choose your correct lane before you get into the roundabout. The last thing you want to do is change lanes within a roundabout because that's just a recipe for disaster. So choose a lane before entering the roundabout. There's always going to be signs or pavement markings directing you which lane to get in, whether you want to make a left turn, go straight, go right. And that'll guide you as you go into the roundabout. And then the last thing, again, choose either the left lane for a multi-lane roundabout as you enter, or the right lane if you want to make a right-hand turn. So it kind of depends on your situation. Thankfully, here in McHenry County, we don't have any multi-lane roundabouts yet. And I say yet because they might be coming in the future. It will be coming in the future, and Chris will talk a little bit about that later in his presentation. But at this point in time, all we have are single-lane roundabouts. So it makes the decision-making a little bit easier. So I'm going to get into some benefits and some drawbacks to roundabouts now. And again, like I said at the top, roundabouts are not perfect. They do have some drawbacks that we need to take into account. So the first thing is safety. A benefit of roundabout is that they are safer than a traditional intersection, whether it's a traffic signal, a 4-way stop, or any other intersection. And that really is because you're reducing the speed and you're reducing the number of conflict points. And I'll get into that later, but the big thing that we all think about in the industry is how to make things safer, and roundabouts do exactly that. The next benefit is it reduces congestion. Roundabouts perform very well at reducing congestion for high traffic corridors in certain environments. They reduce pollution and fuel use. So because you're not stopping and accelerating as much in a roundabout, you're actually more fuel efficient as you go through a roundabout than a traditional traffic signal. And that's why federal grant agencies like CMAP or FHWA, if you propose a roundabout at an intersection, you're more likely to get federal money for that project than if you were to propose a different type of intersection design. And that's because they see a benefit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions for that project. They save money in some cases. I'm not going to say that they save money all the time, but in certain instances, they are cheaper than a traffic signal. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I have here no need for traffic signal equipment to not only power, but install and maintain that equipment throughout its lifespan. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes you need less pavement for a roundabout. It depends on the intersection type and where it's located, but I'll get into more of that later. And then finally, they complement other common community values. Now that might be a little nebulous, but I'll show an example of this on a slide coming up here, but they're quieter because traffic's going through them slower, which if you ever been through like a downtown, the last thing you want to hear is traffic accelerating really hard or screeching their brakes. Roundabouts prevent a lot of that. They have traffic come down to a manageable speed, which is quieter, and it's aesthetically pleasing. Some communities choose to landscape the roundabout either in the center island or on the outside of the roundabout to make it look nicer than a traffic signal. So it's kind of an intangible thing, but it is an important thing. What are some drawbacks? Sorry. Some of the drawbacks are driver confusion. I think that's the biggest one at this point in time here in McHenry County because they're just still not as common as a traffic signal. And so we're building more and more every year, not only the DOT, but the state, the cities. So pretty soon, this isn't going to be something that is as much of an issue, but right now in 2022, it is still an issue. Pedestrians may fear the crossing due to the fact that vehicles need to yield, not come to a full stop, right? So a lot of pedestrians, they're used to pressing the walk button and waiting for that walk signal to come up, and then they can just cross. With a roundabout, you're trusting that the driver is yielding to you, and it's on you as a pedestrian to make sure that driver is yielding, and it's on the driver to notice the pedestrian. And so there's more of a relationship that is not as black and white as a walk, don't walk sign. So that is a drawback for some. And then I say more pavement needed at the corners. So with the roundabout, you can picture it, because it is a circular intersection type, we need typically more pavement at the corners than a traditional traffic signal. That's more of a square type design. However, you don't need turn lanes for roundabouts. So there's less pavement needed as you approach the roundabout, but at the intersection itself, you might need a little bit more pavement. So it kind of, again, depends on the circumstance and what the issue is. And then the last thing, I added this last minute, but a lot of people think, well, roundabouts are safer, right? Yes. However, they don't always necessarily mean less crashes. So the crashes that do occur at roundabouts, and there still will be crashes at roundabouts. However, those crashes are less severe. They're usually typically not injury crashes. They're property damage crashes, rear ends, things like that. No one's going to the hospital with those types of crashes, unlike a traditional traffic signal where you get T-bones, you get more angle crashes that are much more severe, and people unfortunately die at those intersections. So I put it in here because it's kind of a misconception that I wanted to clear up. The big thing for us, though, is safety. So the reason roundabouts are often considered on the county system is because we're looking to improve safety with everything we do. And roundabouts are one of the tools in our toolbox to do just that. But don't take it from Daryl and I, it's FHWA, IDOT, you go down the list of highway agencies. Every agency known to man has handouts, flyers, touting the benefits of roundabouts. I mentioned that it reduces conflict points from 32 to 8. That's what that is saying up there. Reduces fatal crashes by over 90%. So, I mean, that right there, that's the difference between somebody coming home to their family or not, in a given circumstance. So that's kind of, I wanted to tee that up for everybody just so we're all on the same page. I'm going to kind of tag team with Daryl the next few slides here, but we have some examples that we wanted to show just to kind of show you all how MCDOT has been putting in roundabouts over the years. So Daryl, if you want to kind of tee this one up for us. Sure.
Thanks, Scott. This example here, for those who may not recognize it for this type of an angle, this is Johnsburg Road in downtown Johnsburg.
Oh, yeah.
And if we say that, you can kind of, this is down towards the river this side. Here's the downtown as it goes towards Highway 31. So you've got this type of view of a circle and how it fits the context of a downtown area. It also has a landscape median. It does not have landscaped approaches because of their size and at the time. But that's a nuance that can be worked through with certain municipalities, certain locations, whether it's this type of a context or in a rural context, or we'll have another example later on. In this situation, a lot of the residents and the locals really oppose the roundabout. It's not going to work. They're horrible. They never work. And then you put them in, and all that seems to go away once they go through it. We'll still get the drivers. Nobody yields quite right. Somebody stops and waits and they don't get into the intersection. We'll get that, but that will grow with time as users go through it. And Chris will have a good example of their downtown in their Woodstock example also. After the project, we do get compliments sometimes. Usually we just hear the complaints, but there are times we get compliments. And this is from the Johnsburg's Village Administrator. This is very nicely written, showing just how well the community had received this project and this intersection afterwards. Key point to take away from this, though, is we need community support. And that's where groups like this can help spread the word about the positive benefits of roundabouts when they are the right choice. They're not always the right choice, like Scott said, but when they are, having that support, like these are okay. We need community buy-in as we move through. The other aspect is education. We really try to promote getting roundabout training where they can be in the high schools through the driver's ed program, but anybody else, take kids through them, have them experience it so that they become the next generation of drivers and aren't as hesitant towards roundabouts.
And we're not going to read this whole thing, but the last sentence I think is the most important. This has been proven time and time again with studies after roundabouts open up. She says the Johnsburg community has positively embraced the roundabout, and even those residents initially skeptical now praise the improvement. Over and over again, we hear that. I was one of the biggest opponents before you guys put it in. I love the thing now. And we still get calls like that today from people in Johnsburg. So.
In my past where I've worked in different locations, the same message. The fire districts didn't like it. The school districts hated it. The park districts hated it. The board members hated it. Everybody hated it. And then it goes in and then poof, the half-mile long backups in every direction disappear. And they go, wow, this I guess this isn't so bad after all. But to that point about education, it's great as well to just get the word out and bring in the community before it opens up to the public. Have the school buses drive through it. Have the fire departments drive through it. Have the police departments drive through it. Get them to buy in and understand if it's new to their community. Education is key and getting community support is key. So I'm going to say, I'm not sure how this works, but this is a video. One more time.
So we just wanted to show kind of how traffic navigates this. It's in fast motion. I don't expect you to follow all of this.
There's a test later, so how many cars went through.
But it does go to show that people don't need traffic signals to tell them when to go and when to stop, right? They navigate it themselves. If it's built correctly and engineered correctly, it kind of is self-serving intersection design.
And to that point about being built correctly and being put into the right place, this is another example on the county system. This is Charles Road and Raffle Road, north of Woodstock. And we'll bring up a slide here too, that safety is a key component, like Scott mentioned. And this location was a big benefit of that safety. You may not read all these numbers, but I will just point you to the colors above. This is before the roundabout was put into place. Yellow is total crashes, injury crashes, 0 fatalities, thankfully, but A injuries, which are incapacitating type injuries, type B injuries, you still go to the hospital, and even type C injuries, their ambulance says, yeah, you're fine. After the roundabout, 2017, the colors go away almost completely.
But notice that there's still crashes, right? So each of these lines are crashes. It's just that the severity of the crashes has been reduced dramatically.
A lot of these fixed objects, somebody hit a sign. They weren't paying attention and they go straight and they hit a sign. Or they rear end somebody because they thought they were going to go into a gap in front of them. And so they started to proceed, but the car stopped, and you get these minor rear ends with fewer injuries. This is what we see across the country with FHWA, Federal Highways Administrations, US DOT and others, that roundabouts reduce crashes and reduce severities and reduce injuries. Another example that we have on the county network, this is River Road and Dowell out towards, I'll say McHenry-ish area. This is sort of a multi-lane. Not really, but kind of. It's got one leg that kind of has a left turn hook. This is a good example of how intersections are designed for the context, for the movements. There's so many nuances to roundabout design. How many turn lanes, where do they pull, where do they come off? 3 lanes, 4 lanes. So it does take a lot of massaging in art, they say, as we go through the roundabouts.
One thing you'll notice is that didn't have crosswalks, right? So that was an older intersection design type that maybe if we were doing a project like this today, we probably would add things like crosswalks, the pedestrian sidewalk leading up to the intersection. Even though there's not a lot of houses that immediately are here, it still is necessary.
But what's with that left turn lane?
Yeah, this location is just north of Island Lake. River Road. So Moraine Hills State Park is to the left side of your screen if you go up River Road, and Dowell Road is heading straight north on your up on your screen here. So,
like Scott was saying about not having the crosswalks, another aspect that can get rolled into certain designs is to have those simply for on-street bikers that aren't as secure in their riding through the circle. They want to have something to the side, so we can, on some of our, you will see offshoots and have bike path type crossings to provide that type of ability.
And I'll mention too with this one, this was an opportunity for us to enhance installed native vegetation on the outside of the roundabout. You can't really see it very well here, but if you drive through, especially now, a few years after it was built, stuff's coming in very well. So it is a beautifying opportunity when you put these things in. And I'm trying to get through this, so I know Chris, I don't want to sell you short either. So this one here, I'm not going to talk about as much. This is a state-led project or a state project. This is 20 in Harmony. So if you guys know, kind of near Marengo, southeast of Marengo, 20. So Harmony Road is up here. 20, I think, is east-west. You can see the car. It's like a car dealership on the corner there. So a state project that looks very similar to the county projects. This one here is 23. This is 23 here, south of Marengo. And this is Harmony here, east-west. And you can see in the background, that's I-90. That's the expressway, the Jane Addams Tollway there. And this was just put in 2020, a couple of years ago. This was a partnership between the tollway, the state, and McHenry County because it involved a county road. And the tollway obviously was a partner. There was never an interchange here. So this was the McHenry County's first interchange within our corporate limits. And obviously Illinois 23 is a state route. So it was kind of an intergovernmental partnership. And I think it looks really well and it works really well too. And I want to just tee Chris up here. So there's more coming, right? So if you guys, Chris is going to talk about his roundabout in Woodstock, but there's also one in Algonquin that's being built today. And I don't know when it's going to be open, maybe later this year, maybe next. But Cary Road and Old Main Street, what used to be 31, that intersection, Cary and Main, they're turning into a roundabout as well. So you can check out their website, find more information about that. That's a village project. But Chris, take it away. Hopefully we set you up here for success.
Right. Thank you, Scott and Daryl. So yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about the Woodstock roundabout. If you have not driven through Woodstock lately, you probably haven't seen construction, but I've had the intersection closed down since April. So if you haven't driven in Woodstock, it's probably since then that you haven't seen it coming. So anyway, so on the screen, you see a picture of the intersection of Lake Avenue, South and Madison. And you also have a little bit of a example or a concept drawing of what the new roundabout's going to look like. So why did Woodstock want to build a roundabout here? Well, there's really three reasons. The first one was traffic safety. Scott and Daryl, I think, alluded to many of the reasons why roundabouts are safe. One thing that I would like to point out in particular with this intersection, it's a 5-legged roundabout. Yeah. Most of their examples were all 4-legged. So I just want to point that out. I'll get a little more to that in a minute. So second reason is in Woodstock, we have the Woodstock Square streetscape guidelines. And these guidelines were put together in 2007. And they basically alluded that this would be a great intersection for a roundabout. And then thirdly, availability of grant funding. Who doesn't like to build a project with somebody else's money? So, traffic safety. At our roundabout, like I had said, it's a 5-legged roundabout. You know, your standard intersection has 4 legs. Well, it would help if, okay. So, anyways, it being a 5-legged roundabout, we have 5 stop signs there. There's a lot of confusion for drivers of who to go. I mean, anybody who drives now, sometimes when you get to your 4 stop sign intersection, there's always questions of who's going to go. And when you throw a 5th leg of a road in, that's not even 90 degrees into the intersection, you're looking all over. There's a lot of confusion. And actually, as we looked at intersections throughout the city, this intersection has some of the higher number of crashes for an intersection within the city. Since 2016, since we've been keeping track of crash data, we've actually had 28 crashes there. So once we're done with this roundabout here, we anticipate that this number is going to come down dramatically. We still may have some crashes, but not nearly as many as we once had. So I briefly mentioned the Woodstock Square streetscape guidelines. So in 2007, the city hired Hitchcock Design Group to pull together a streetscape design guidelines for our square. And the reason for that was so we could have some uniformity in what was being done downtown. And part of that plan identified to extend that out, just not in the square, but to extend it out to some of the perimeter streets. And just kind of bring some of those design elements further out. So, and also in that plan, it identified, like I had mentioned, that the Madison Lake and South Street intersection be included in that. It contemplated other designs of closing a road off or reconfiguring some of the roads and some great designs. However, some of those plans required more property. And at the end of the day, really the roundabout was what they officially recommended. So the guidelines also identified that, putting a roundabout there would improve the appearance of the intersection. It's one of the gateways around the city. It also they thought that it would allow the opportunity to install more wayfinding signs and guide people to the downtown and to help access the downtown area. Another item they identified was that it would allow, like I had mentioned earlier, some of the streetscape features from the square, kind of bring those out. So you kind of, you're getting close to the square because you're starting to see some of the architectural design elements that we have in the square area. And lastly, and like a big thing here is it would improve traffic flow, it would reduce congestion, and most of all, it would improve safety. So as I mentioned, grant funding, McHenry County Council of Mayors, they manage the surface transportation program, and the city knows this, and they do this every 2 years typically, I think it is, on a cycle, and it's a 80-20 match. So what that means is this program will pay for 80% of construction costs up to $1.5 million. And then 20% of those costs are paid by the grantee, or in this case, the city. So, it really was a great idea to do that. So in 2013, the city decided to apply for this funding, and we actually got it. That was actually long before my time. So, but I guess, so we applied for the grant funding, and it was programmed in for a few years out. So in 2016, 2017, I know it's kind of hard to read on the screen there, but 2016, 2017, we did the phase 1 engineering, which is where you kind of look at the overall design, kind of what works, what doesn't. And then once they got the go ahead and said, yep, it works, 2017 to 2018, we did all of the design, the engineering plans, the specifications, and we're ready to go for construction. However, we needed to get some property. So from 2018 to 2021, we've been working to get, or we were working to get some parcels, or not entire parcels, but small portions of privately owned land from 5 different parties. We got 3 of them right away. And for the last 2 years that I've been with the city, we've been working to get those last 2 parcels. But finally, in October of 2021, we actually got it, and we were able to move forward with the bid. And it was all bid through IDOT, which is actually a good thing that we got it, because the STP funding that we got from the county doesn't last forever. We had to get the project under construction by April of this year in order to keep that $1.5 million that we got. If we weren't under construction, that $1.5 million was gone away. And
did the city have to pay to get the private parcels?
Some of them we did, and yes, and right now, of those 5 parcels, we actually had to go through the process of quick take, which is not quick. It took over a year to get. And what that does is it ultimately goes through state legislation. The property that you need is given to the city, and then the city has to put an amount of money into an account, and then the lawyers battle it out about how much is actually worth. And the lawyers are still working on that, but we got the property, we got the $1.5 million, and our construction is underway. So a couple things. Oh, went a little too quick there. Let's see, can I go back here? There we go. All right, so here's a couple pictures of it. In the lower right corner of the screen, they're installing some storm sewer. So we used the construction to also do some infrastructure improvements. We have a lot of drainage issues in Woodstock, and through this roundabout area, we have one of our primary trunk storm sewers. Currently, it was a 42-inch. We upsize it to a 6-foot diameter pipe. So I'm 6'3". So that's just the inside diameter of the pipe. And then you have like another 10 to 12 inches of concrete on each side. So this pipe itself is 12 inches from edge to edge. So the picture doesn't do it justice, but it's massive. Some of the challenges that we faced and are still facing is in the upper left, there's some power poles that are in the area where we're actually constructing the roundabout. And I was told in 2020 when I started that ComEd was ready to go. We just needed the remaining property. And so in October of 2021, I called ComEd and I go, I got the property, go. And they're like, well, we're going to start designing this. And so it's been back and forth. And then it was, oh, we needed an easement. Oh, we don't need an easement. And actually they just started relocating their power poles about 3 weeks ago. Now, the problem with that is AT&T and Comcast are also on those poles. So they can't do their work till ComEd's done. ComEd will be done, I think, this week. Comcast is coming out in the following week to start, and I'm still working on getting AT&T out there to relocate. So with large pipes in the lower right-hand corner come very large structures or manholes underground. That manhole is on a flat bed of a semi-trailer. It's 9 foot in diameter, and that's the inside diameter. Once again, you can throw another 12 inches of concrete outside, and they're just massive. And I should also add that this storm sewer is about 12 feet deep, I think, at the bottom of the pipe. So you got big earth excavation through this area. In addition to the storm sewer, we also did replace water main and sanitary sewer because it was aging, and the last thing the city likes to do is dig up a road that we just paved because it doesn't make anybody look good. In addition to that, we also had to remove an old garage. We're dealing with some contaminated soils in some of the areas as well. And it's just, it's a big project and a big undertaking. In the upper left is one of the pictures kind of looking towards the intersection. You can see in the middle, there's a power pole that's going to be in my way in a couple more weeks, or I should say my contractor's way. So that's a little bit about the Woodstock roundabout.
Can I
That's
ask you a question about that?
sure.
I'm having trouble visioning how the railroad underpass there is going to be affected and how it affects the whole project.
Sure. Because it's the railroad, you need an act of God to get anything from them. So we have stayed outside of any of their property that they own. So that where that railroad underpass is, that is one leg of the intersection coming up to the roundabout. So the bridge will remain the same, nothing will change there, but the road will just come up and then you'll enter into the roundabout once you've crossed under the bridge.
What if you've got traffic coming from both directions? Or is that not going to be the case anymore? Because now I can go under the underpass and then I have to stop and wait to see
Correct.
if there's somebody coming from the other direction.
That won't change. That won't change. That'll remain the same. The structure is just as narrow as ever, and you'll still have to wait on each side. But we have allowed, and when we designed the roundabout, we wanted to make sure that there was enough room for a car or two to wait. So you weren't like coming off the roundabout and then immediately having to deal with that bridge. So that was factored into the design of the roundabout and the location of everything. So currently construction, weather permitting and ComEd permitting is supposed to be done on the roundabout contractually December 1st. With roundabouts, you have to, the biggest thing is even if we have the concrete down, you have to have street lighting on them. That's one of the bigger things IDOT requires and other entities require is lighting, because visually, if you got your headlights on, sometimes you can't always see. So you probably have noticed on Charles Street in Woodstock there, if you're looking in the sky towards Charles Street, you see a little bit of a glow. That's because they're well lit. Most roundabouts are well lit. So we anticipate though that the contractor will get done. He is fully on board. He's been working around poles, doing all he can to get it done. So that's the Madison Lake Avenue South Street roundabout. But for those of you who like roundabouts, there's more to come. So everybody's been talking about ad nauseum about IDOT widening Route 47. They are originally going to widen it from Route 14 all the way up to Charles Street. And then IDOT realized the cost to do that was so expensive that they broke it up into two sections. Their first section is from Route 14 to 120. And then the next section is 120 to Charles. The funding has been appropriated through IDOT for that first section. We are currently, I shouldn't say we, it's the state, but the state is currently designing that project. And actually, they're in the process of acquiring all the property up and down 47 from 14 to 120. I think if I last remember right, it was like 167 properties are impacted by this project. And this project is widening 47 through that area from 1 lane each way to 2 lanes. Now, once again, in the upper picture there, where the black lines are, is the railroad underpass. It takes acts of God to get anything done from the railroad, and very expensive, very, very expensive. So rather than enlarging that underpass, that's going to remain the same. IDOT is proposing to place a roundabout on the south side at Lake and on the north side at McConnell. This will eliminate the need for traffic lights. So traffic will always be able to flow smoothly, assuming it's safe to enter the roundabout. These will be 2-lane roundabouts. The inside lanes will be, if you want to go north, say to Lake Geneva, or just continue north, you stay in the inside lane and you'll go in, enter the roundabout, go around, and you continue through. If you want to say go under the bridge and go onto McConnell, you go into the roundabout on the outside lane. So you go through the roundabout under, and then you would be able to exit onto McConnell or continue going straight. So it's kind of like once again, like Scott and Daryl had said, you got to pay attention to the signs. The first few times, everybody's not going to know where to go, like any roundabout. But then after you do it a few times, you'll be an old hat at it. So those are 2 roundabouts that they're putting in. The third roundabout, as part of this project, is going in at Irving and Judd by Wendy's there. So that was another area where IDOT felt a roundabout would be a great place to go and once again, eliminate traffic signals, because traffic signals, when they work, they can be very beneficial in certain situations. But the beauty of roundabouts is when you have power failures, people can keep going because you don't need to wait for a blinking red traffic light. Or if the intersection is dark and there are no traffic lights, it's a really haphazard situation and very dangerous. Where with a roundabout, you can still safely navigate through. The city is using IDOT's project to help beautify some of what we're doing along there. IDOT, they have their standards that they use, and it's very minimal. It's grass, concrete, and not much more. The city is going to be, and I've kind of overlaid what we're doing. We've hired a landscape design consultant to come up and help streetscape this corridor with a big emphasis on the roundabouts itself. So we're planning to do like red stamped concrete at the crosswalks, and then some of the barrier medians, and enhanced landscaping such as some trees and things like that. So we're trying to make these locations a little bit more special to help announce, like, hey, if Lake, you can get into downtown this way, or at McConnell, you can't really get to downtown, but we're trying to enhance some of these roundabouts to make it look more appealing and nice for everybody as they travel through. So it's not funded yet. Money hasn't been appropriated, to my last I heard, for that second half from 120 to Charles, but the state is anticipating adding 2 more roundabouts in that area. And those roundabouts are going to go at Ware Road and 47 up by the courthouse, and then further north up at Charles. So if and when the state gets that money, stay tuned. There will be more roundabouts coming there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is there ever going to be a chance that between 14 and McConnell that the traffic would back up between those 2 roundabouts and clog up?
It would be highly unlikely. I mean, certainly if an accident happens or something, that's always a chance. But from a traffic movement analysis, studies have shown that it's not going to back up that far. I mean, I know right now, if you're going from Lake to try to get under the tracks, it's stop and go, and it's a nightmare at any time of the day. But with this project, we're going to be widening it from 1 to 2 lanes each way. And I will mention that right now that 2 lanes on each side that they're getting rid of the sidewalk under the railroad bridge there, and they're using that. And what they're doing is they're putting a pedestrian underpass a little to the east. So as part of this project too, not to get away from roundabouts, but there's going to be a bike path up the east side of it, like I think a 10-foot wide, and sidewalk. So it'll be really nice when it's all said and done. But traffic will move very nicely through there. So
does 14 and 47 remain?
14 and 47, yes, that will still remain a light. So-
As will the 120/47
Yes.
intersection. That's remaining a traffic signal.
47 in Country Club, is that gonna stay a stoplight?
Yes, that will remain a stoplight. So, yes,
How about all the curb breaks on that 47 route? Are they gonna stay?
the curb breaks.
Well, when people are coming in, when people are coming out of the businesses?
Oh, entrances to the businesses will be there, but IDOT's installing a barrier median through through a lot of the areas along there. So as you exit the businesses, you'll only be able to make a right turn and go either north or south from that business, depending on the business.
They're still in there jamming up part of the traffic.
They will be, yes, but you're gonna have 2 lanes. So if you want to get through Woodstock, stay in the inside lane and you should sail right through.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Is there any estimate as to what the improvement might be to go from one end to the other after the project?
If there is, I have not seen that.
Speak louder so that people on Zoom can hear.
Sure. So, yeah, the question was, okay, good. The question was if there's been any study as to the time it takes to get from 14 to 120 now versus once these improvements are done. And I'm not aware of anything. But I think given the constriction of the railroad right away and the bridge, and from what I understand, it was like 50 to 100 million just to widen that railroad bridge. But that, I don't know what those are, but I know that it should operate more efficiently and more smoothly.
And just to be clear, none of us work for IDOT, right? That's an IDOT project. Chris is doing his best, knowing from the city's perspective about the project, but a lot of those specific questions, I think only IDOT has those tips answers to.
Sure. So, and I know Facebook is a real crazy thing, and that's where I got that from. Because I've shut down the intersection for a while, and I've seen that come up on the What's Happening in Woodstock feed about 3 or 4 times. So when I found out I was going to do this presentation, I had to look for it, but it wasn't hard to find because it's always there. So, yes.
One other thing, vegetation that you're putting out there. How high is it going to be in the center part of the circle?
Typically with the center areas of any roundabout, you want either taller vegetation or statues or monuments or something, because you want to block headlights from the other way, because you don't want drivers to focus on what's in front of them. You want them to focus on what's to the right and who's in the traffic circle or the roundabout on the left coming, and pedestrians. You don't want them to look ahead, because it doesn't matter. If you miss your exit, you go around again. You just keep going. So it's designed that way. Although you will see every now and then, I live south of here and I come up 47 and there's a couple roundabouts, and at least once a year, they're looking at their phone or they're looking somewhere else and they go right up and over the middle. And the best thing is sometimes I see where they haven't made it all the way over because the tracks don't come down the other side, and other times they do. So you do want to keep it up high. Yes.
So for the landscaping that we're talking about, is there a focus on it being pollinator friendly, local fauna?
Yes, one thing, well, yeah, sorry. The question was if the landscaping in traffic circles is more pollinator friendly, essentially, and environmentally friendly, native plants. Typically what we, at least in the design work that I've done with our consultant along 47, is we want it to be minimal maintenance and natural. So we don't want typically lawns, things like that. We want, flowers, plants. So I mean, things that would be pollinator friendly. But we also got to look at the maintenance, because the last thing we need to do is once a week sending somebody across a 1 or 2 lane traffic circle or roundabout with the lawnmower, quick running over to try to trim some grass. So the whole goal is to keep it as maintenance friendly and minimal maintenance as possible, just for those reasons.
Well, Johnsburg Roundabout, if any of you've been up there, is a good example. They're not necessarily native plants, but the center of their roundabout has been beautifully planted with flowers. So, and pollinators will use those flowers too.
And typically on the county system with roundabouts we build, if we build them within a municipality, we have the municipality maintain those kind of ornamental features, whether it's a statue or landscaping. So really that's a good question for the city that the roundabout's being built in, like in Woodstock, like they're the ones ultimately that has to maintain this in the future. If they're not willing to do that, you're probably going to get something very low maintenance. So depends on the city, I think.
And a lot of times those plantings require irrigation. And so that's an added cost because of some of the pavement around there, you know, and typically you design your centers to be a little bit of a crown, so the water drains off. So you need irrigation for that, and that's just an added cost a lot of times. And then when you water it, it grows more, and if it's like a lawn or something like that, then you got to mow it. So there's a fine balance between what you can do out there.
Shameless plug. I just wanted to mention before we get cut off here, depending on your opinions of roundabouts, love them, hate them. We were doing a long range plan right now at the county level that's looking at our entire roadway system in McHenry County. Please give us input. If you guys like roundabouts, you want to see more of them, those are the kind of comments we want to hear, or negative. If you don't like them, tell us why. Go on our website. We've got surveys. We've got a mapping feature. You can leave a comment for us no matter where you want. And actually, Jeff Young in the back is helping us with the consultant team on helping with the plan as well. So sorry, there were questions in the back. Yep.
Hi, I just want to say that I think putting native plants in the center of your roundabouts is the way to go, and my organization will help you. So come and see. It will be less maintenance, and it will be beautiful, and it will provide a habitat for pollinators, which we need. Thank you. And it needs no water, no fertilizer, no care. I mean, other than having some people come out to the meeting every now and then, you'd be good to go.
Until it gets
It will be the
established.
best. It will be the best result.
Thanks.
Yes.
Is there ever a point where there's like too much traffic for a roundabout or too less traffic where you want to put one?
There can be, although if anybody's ever been to Paris, around the Arc de Triomphe, there's a 15-lane roundabout.
Oh, my God.
And so, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
European vacation.
Yeah.
JK.
yeah, you know, so I mean, yes, there can be, I mean, but I think at some point, really what restricts you are the legs of the intersection coming in as far as the capacity there. Because the roundabout can always, you know, handle typically the traffic, because when there's a spot, traffic can go in but it's really getting the traffic into the roundabout.
Good question.
Yes.
So you mentioned the bike and pedestrian at the railroad tracks. Is that gonna go under the track?
Yes, the
So
bike and
they have to
pedestrian,
tunnel under there.
yes, the bike and pedestrian path is gonna go east and they're gonna tunnel under the railroad,
Oh, interesting.
which was still cheaper in the long run than trying to widen the bridge. And
Yeah.
because being a metro route and a commuter route,
Yeah.
that
You
line
can't
has
stop
to
that.
remain open, and it was kind of a nightmare. So, yes.
Can I just mention one more thing that you might want to add to your benefits? Because when the first roundabouts were coming into the county, McDOT was first planning them, the environmental defenders researched and wrote a white paper in support of roundabouts, you guys may remember. And one of the things that you haven't mentioned is that roundabouts actually protect our water resources also, because when you have traditional stoplights or stop signs, cars have to come to a full stop. You frequently get those black spots on the highway because oil drippage is occurring then. With roundabouts, you don't have cars stopping and dripping oil. So I just thought, you could add that as one more benefit,
For those-
protecting our water resources.
Yeah, for those on Zoom, it was a comment about how roundabouts can protect water resources, and very good comment, Nancy. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
You have a question?
I was just curious, if besides beyond Woodstock and stuff, you guys do, what other, I heard that they know in Crystal Lake, what places?
I know Crystal Lake off the top of my head, Congress Parkway, and is it Eric or someplace over by the Pingree Road Metro Station? They're looking at us at an intersection over there to put in a roundabout. There's been talk, I think it's not being supported by the city at this point in time, but they're looking at the five leg intersection in downtown. Right down the street here, walk up and Crystal Lake Avenue, Crystal Lake Road. So that's a potential candidate in the future. I don't think they're ready to move forward with that just yet. But the one on Congress Parkway is, I think, the first one in the city of Crystal Lake that they'll be looking to construct. I think within the next 3 or 4 years, they're looking to get going on that.
I just have to comment, if people have been on the expressway in Janesville and gotten off the double roundabout.
Oh, I have it.
Well, yeah, but dog on it, you end up in the right place. You're like, where am I going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wisconsin is definitely a leader in putting these in, especially around the interstate system, because it is more efficient to move traffic on and off the interstate. So yeah, very good comment.
In Canada, they're all over.
Yeah. Pat?
Are we, you looking at ones on Akron Road?
So the comment was, are we looking at roundabouts on Acton Road? And the answer is yes. So the county did a feasibility study a couple of years ago where we looked at the entire Acton Road corridor from Halligus Road all the way to Randall Road. And roundabouts, it was a feasibility study, so we're not very far along in the process. But we looked at both a roundabout alternative at all the major intersections, Lakewood, Halligus, Square Barn, Red Tail, Huntley, even I think even Golf Course was considered as well. We looked at those, and we also modeled it as traffic signals and how they would operate for both. And I believe the feasibility study recommended roundabouts at many of those intersections. So again, that's a long way off. We just resurfaced Ackman Road a couple of years ago, so we're in no hurry to get up and dig it all up now. But I would say that is something we're thinking about in the future, for sure.
All right.
Well, I want to, yeah, thank you all.
Scott. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Who's been by a roundabout yet? Yeah, I met them in Boston. It was really fun. Rotaries out there, but we have time for some announcements. So Ann's going to keep track of those. And if you have some that have to do with this community, why,